Good morning, Franklin County. I am here with the Honorable Stacy Rodgers, who serves as the President-elect of the National Forum of Black Public Administrators and serves as the Chief Administrative Officer for Baltimore County, Maryland. How are you doing this morning at ICMA?
Indeed, I am well and really honored to join you today. I want to thank you and your team for inviting me.
Yes, you are a living example of she leads. Um, just the size of the government in Baltimore County. Give us a little preview of what the size and scope of the government there in Baltimore County, Maryland, that you're in charge of and that you do you every day.
Well, Baltimore County uh, is the third largest jurisdiction in Maryland. We have 850,000 residents, and we are a charter government. We have a elected county executive, and I am appointed. My role that people often ask, what does the county administrative officer do? I'm responsible for the day-to-day operation of the county government. My role or my job description, if you will, is defined in our charter. So that makes it real clear to everyone what my responsibilities are. One of the biggest responsibilities is annually developing and presenting to the county executive for his consideration and submission to our county council. We have a 7-member county council that we work closely with to carry out the work. We have our FY24 operating budget is $4.4 billion. Dollars. And I'll say our workforce in full force is a little under 10,000 employees. Right now, as many jurisdictions, we're struggling with the Great Resignation, and we have quite a few vacancies, particularly in our public safety spaces. So that's one of our big challenges right now.
There's a saying in our field, show me your budget, show me your priorities. Of over $4 billion, where does the money majorly go?
Well, Ken, we're in a county that we fund our school system. So 48% of our budget goes to the school system. Right behind that is public safety, and then the rest of the government. From the standpoint of our working relationship with the school system to develop that budget each year, it's a deliberative process. We work very closely with the school system, but that's where the majority of the funds go to the school system.
That's what we see a lot. It's what's a little bit different in some jurisdictions. Uh, Funding of education goes through local school boards,
Yes.
And local school boards have taxing authority. But it's really about educating the youth of Baltimore, who will be the future of Baltimore,
Absolutely.
and keeping people safe every day. But
Absolutely.
it is basically what you do, what your one of your biggest charge is where I see it. Um,
Well, back to the question of about priorities, I will say when our administration arrived, and I'm just so pleased to work with our county executive very, very closely. Uh, County Executive John A. Olszewski Jr. is our county executive. We changed things a little bit in terms of engagement with community with respect to our budgeting process and hearing from community.
mhm.
In prior administrations, very few people came out to testify on behalf of or about our budget, period. But under the county executive's leadership, we absolutely opened that up. and we started budget town halls where we
Mhm.
went into the community and talked about what we were doing and heard from community members. And that way, thousands of people participated
Mhm.
in the process. So we have we have 7 councilman jurisdictions, and we
Mhm.
hosted a town hall in each of those jurisdictions in conjunction with the council member and heard from the citizens. And even more recently, we began to do, the little immediate response polls.
Uh-huh.
And the citizenry has responded affirmatively that between public safety and education, that's where their priorities are too. So we do have confirmation that our budget priorities are aligned. The other big thing that we did prior to our administration, we did not have an enterprise-wide strategic plan. And that's where my base is around having that plan, because we know that without a plan, that you're all working together toward reaching goals, is difficult for an enterprise to make, demonstrative moves forward as an organization. So we have 6 goals, and it is based on community, it's based on accountability, and in terms of sustainability, we're concerned about issues of sustainability, ethics. We have a big, accountability piece for the government and empowered workforce. And now we're branching that out from just focusing on the internal workforce, but the entire county workforce. So I'm pretty pleased.
Workforce is everything.
Absolutely.
We can't
Behind the
serve our
budget.
we can't serve our residents if we don't have a quality workforce. And you spoke of the Great Resignation. You spoke of a increasing demand from employees for greater work-life balance.
Absolutely.
And, they people before the pandemic compromised uh, work-life balance in a lot of cases, but not anymore. So as administrators, we have to speak to that and act in a way that not only we say to our employees that we value them, but we have to show them in a tangible way that we value them.
Absolutely. And I was so impressed recently when we were participants at the NACO, the Business of Counties uh, forum just this past week. The physician who came and talked to us realistically about that, I was very impressed with the presentation and the data. So, this is something that we really do have to focus on, because the intergenerational considerations with the workforce, the balance between trying to, be more flexible in tours of duty, whether that's teleworking, what jobs are portable to a teleworking environment, accountability, access in terms of our employees, because it's not, we can't be confused about the fact that
Mhm.
when you're teleworking, you're just sitting in a different seat. Sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, they're teleworking today. But when
Mhm.
teleworking and different alternative ways of doing our work begin to compromise our service delivery and access for our residents, then that's a challenge. So we have to be very, very careful to set clear expectations, but try to have that balance. And in our area, we're competing with the federal workforce. We've got a number of major federal installations in our immediate area, and teleworking is a big piece of the
Mhm.
federal workspace and the salaries. So we have to really work closely with our unions, with the tours of duty and the options for telework. How do we make the decisions on what positions are appropriate for telework. There's a lot to it,
Yeah.
and we have to be ready to be flexible.
What's the greatest opportunity that you see in the DMV, the DC, Maryland and Virginia area, as you all call it, DMV?
The
And
DMV.
what do you see as the greatest challenge?
When I want to talk about the opportunity, because of how we're situated, between Northern Virginia, the District of Columbia, the major, our two largest jurisdictions in Maryland are border jurisdictions with the District of Columbia. And then, of course, when you come to the Baltimore metropolitan side, is regional collaboration. We have so many opportunities as governments right there together to collaborate because, let's face it, natural disasters, inclement weather issues, issues around sustainability. What are we doing about the Chesapeake Bay that touches us all? Because we have to work together on those issues because no one jurisdiction can solve it alone. Global warming, what are we doing about, sustainable renewable energy collectively because our region is impacted by what we all do. And I'm pleased to say that we have a great working relationship in our region. We have to work more strategically, I believe. This is a challenge to go after federal resources that we can use collectively to address some of the regional issues. Transportation across the metropolitan area. Also for us, water and sewer issues, especially on the Baltimore side. I was honored to share our review of our metro utility, water utility, that the governing guidance and legislation for the utility goes back to the early 1900s. The last major change in the guiding documents and MOUs between the two jurisdictions go back to the 70s. So people have talked about this for years, but we proactively work together to do something about it, to take a close look.
Yes, resources are everything. When you talk about water, sewer, having a reliable source for electricity.
There you go.
And
the grids.
Utility, yes, and digital access in broadband is
Absolutely
very much a public utility. Is there any major initiatives or are there digital equity issues in Baltimore County?
Absolutely. I'm really pleased. Even prior to the start of our administration 5 years ago, the county had been very successful in securing federal funding through NTIA, the National Telecommunications Administration that's housed within Commerce. And I'll also say I'm really, really pleased that through NFBPA, the region, we received funding for that was geared toward digital equity efforts in conjunction with historically Black colleges and universities. And I'm very, very proud that the county and Baltimore City are working with Morgan State University and Coppin State University, where actually I started my career, on digital equity and inclusion activities, not only with connectivity, but training and outreach into the community. The grant required HBCU, a government entity, and a nonprofit community entity to work together. And both universities received close to $3 million each.
Yeah.
2.9 million for one, and then 1.98 million, and we're a part of that. It was a requirement of the grant program, the
Yeah.
MTIA grant program. So, and it's focusing on three areas. Number one, not just the access, but sustainability with the access in terms of promoting the federal benefit, the
Mhm.
$30 a month benefit. So the state of Maryland kicked in, and we're putting in through the state an additional $15 a month for our residents who qualify. We're doing training on how to utilize equipment. And then that next step that we're taking is how do we ensure that after residents receive the training, have the equipment, that if something happens to that equipment, that long term they can get access to repairs, things like that, because it's one thing to have it, but we well know that things go awry with iPads and laptops and things like that.
Yeah.
And some of the data that the county, we did a digital access survey a couple years ago, and within that data, it suggested to us that we needed to address those issues. So absolutely, Baltimore County and working with our partner, with Baltimore City, I believe are on the leading edge of community engagement around digital access, affordability, and long-term sustainability through NTIA funding.
Thank you for sharing that great partnership. And
Yes,
collaborations matter.
absolutely.
Um, you can accomplish so much more together than operating in silos. And for the listeners, the Affordable Connectivity Program,
Hmm.
if you're eligible, go online, Google it. It's something that we want every resident of anywhere in the
Absolutely.
country to take advantage of if they're eligible. So thank you for
Absolutely.
mentioning that as well, Stacy. Now let's talk about NFBPA. You mentioned um, your work, and now you're president elect. Just briefly touch on what you're seeking uh, to accomplish in this position. And I know you're very excited about bringing the annual conference back to Baltimore. I believe you said 3 decades has been
Absolutely.
since you hosted it. So you're going to be the president, you're going to be the lady in charge, you're going to make sure
Absolutely.
that everything is right. So let's talk a little bit about that
Well,
too.
it's one of my Ken. It's one of my favorite subjects right now. It's threefold for me. It's to me, you know, the circle going full circle back to the beginning. The NFBPA conference for all of your listening audience is April 3rd through the 7th, 2024, in Baltimore City at the um, Marriott Waterfront Hotel as our host hotel. But we are planning lots of learning activities in Baltimore and in Baltimore County, because Baltimore City and Baltimore County are two separate jurisdictions. But because of the Maryland chapter being a state chapter, our approach to the conference is a little different, because we are hosting the conference in conjunction with the chapter, Maryland chapter. I'm very proud of, been a member for many, many years, and the surrounding jurisdictions, Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Baltimore County. We have a few others that we're working with, and Baltimore City. We are supporting jurisdictions supporting the conference. So lots of exciting things. The thing for me when I reflect back over these 30 years, as I've shared a couple times since we've been here at ICMA, is that going back 30 years, I was just starting out in my career and looking out at this sea of African American professionals who looked like me,
Mhm.
that gave me the inspiration that I too could work in the public sector and be successful And NFBPA was the place that I could get the additional training besides, my education, my undergrad, my master's degree. I learned about NFBPA from one of my professors at the University of Baltimore. And throughout that time, went through the training programs. We have two flagship programs, the mentor program for colleagues who are in their early phases of their career. They're assigned a mentor, and those mentor relationships are long-term relationships. My mentor and I stayed together for 26 years.
Wow.
We were a mentoring management pair. Wherever she went, I went with her. So I've been in 7 jurisdictions. She retired after we left the federal level. I had the honor of serving as the chief of staff for the Social Security Administration for 6 of the 8 Obama years. And that organization touches the entire nation, everybody in the country, in terms of its charge. So when you look at the experiences and opportunities and training opportunities, particularly for emerging leaders that are looking to move up into leadership roles, NFBPA is definitely an organization that is designed to do that. And during my tenure as president-elect and going forward into the presidency, that's one of my big pieces. Because when you look at government, the way government is structured, and you look at the opportunities to grow and to move into positions, we well know that there's a lot of potential, but the opportunities come by who knows what you can do. When people are asking, do you know a good person? I'm asked that all the time. Do you have a clone? Someone recently said, do you have a clone? I said, I wish I did, but I'll say this. I know of young people in the pipeline who are ready, who have the potential, the capacity, and the ability to go forward. So we're promoting that. We also promote our relationship and partnership with ICMA, because the ICMA, Certified Public Manager Program, excellent program. I share that information often with colleagues who are looking to go in the city county managers track, because there are opportunities all over the country. But we have to ensure that we're preparing the next generation and that they're ready, because these jobs are not for those the faint at heart. There's a lot of sacrifice, and you have to be ready for that.
I'm so glad you talked about the importance of mentorship, and the importance, particularly as African American leaders, to set the example and to be committed to uplifting others and encouraging others to stay in the
Absolutely.
profession, because there's numerous opportunities, different positions, but there is great reward in being a public servant
Absolutely.
and impacting your community and being able to uh, work in areas such as early childhood learning, economic mobility. We need to do everything we can to promote the profession and mentor those in the pipeline.
Absolutely.
You mentioned HBCUs. We need to promote public administration as a profession within HBCUs,
Absolutely.
within higher education in general. MBAs are great, but MPAs are great as well.
It's very versatile, because a lot of young professionals ask me that too. What do I see? MPA, MSW, MBA. I said, well, the MPA is broad enough that you could work in so many different fields. And the JD MPA is even more so. If I had to do it all over again, I would have gone that track, because the law is so important to everything that we do. People often ask me, am I an attorney? I said, no, I'm not an attorney, but I rely on my colleagues in the Office of Law because it's by what authority do we do what we do, and knowing that when we're planning something, have we vetted and consulted the law? What does our own legislative references say? What does our code say? What does the state legislation say? Are we operating in our authority? So I often say, if you want to work in government in an operational capacity, then an MPA is definitely, because you're going to get budget, you're going to get the programmatic operational aspect. How do you measure and your outcomes? You're going to get performance management. You're going to get HR. You're going to get all of the foundational pieces. In our program, we had a subset on IT that I was like, why do we have to learn this? I would hire somebody to do these things. Right. But what the professor said at the end was, sure, you'll hire people to do things, but how will you know if the people you're hiring are selling you a bill of goods or really doing what needs to be done? Right, so you need a little bit of everything. An MPA gives you that.
Yes. I could just talk at least a half an hour plus. I have so many other questions in my head, but yeah, we're limited in time. As we wrap up, the talk of the county, I want it to be a relaxed conversation, but yet be informational to residents that tune in. So tell me a fun fact about Stacy Rodgers, the CAO for Baltimore County, Maryland. What fun fact?
Well,
what do you love? What's your favorite ice cream? Tell us a fun fact.
Sure. Everyone who knows me, my fun fact revolves around my grandchildren. I have two wonderful little grandsons. One just turned 9, and the other one will be 11 in January. And I still go to amusement parks. I hang out with them as much as I can. It's just a spinoff of Funkadelic way back in the day. If you hear any noise, it's just me and my boys. Well, for me, if you hear any noise, it's just me and my G-boys, my grandsons. They keep me focused because I know that there's a finite amount of time that they're going to be little boys. Mm-hmm. By the time we hit middle school and the whole aspect of girls and other things come into play, they're not going to want to hang out with Grammy. But we go to amusement parks. I still ride on rides at 60 plus. I'm out there with them. We swim. As a matter of fact, I'm already planning post-conference to take them on a cruise and experience. This will be our first international experience. We're going to Bermuda. And they're very excited. We've looked at pictures and the things we want to do. But when it comes to them, they have said to me, Grammy, especially during COVID, why do you have to work so long? You're on your computer when we get up in the morning, and you're on your computer when we go to bed at night. Why do you have to work so many hours? And I say to them, it's because we have to ensure that in government, the people we're charged to serve get what they need.
That's so important. You have such an important job. You're over a multi-billion-dollar budget. You have all of the issues that come up over the course of every day. So being a soccer Grammy is important to you. I know.
Absolutely. Went from New Mexico, back across the coast to go to my grandson's soccer games on Saturday, then flew back to Texas.
Tell me you got a T-shirt with Soccer Grammy on it.
I don't, but I'm gonna get one.
Thank you for sharing that fun fact, and thank you for uh, agreeing to just have a conversation with me here on Talk of the County.
Well, it was my pleasure. I had a wonderful experience during my undergrad experience. I spent 2 years at Ohio University in Athens.
Bobcats.
Go Bobcats. I have two lifelong friends. One lives in Sandusky and one lives in Dayton. So I have connections to the state of Ohio. And being from Pittsburgh, I had cousins and relatives in Cleveland. So we made that trek back and forth on 70 West, coming into Cleveland as a teenager, coming over to the Steelers and the Browns football games. So I have a lot of connectivity to Ohio.
Ohio is a big football state.
You're right about
It's
that.
a big football state.
Go Buckeyes.
So want to thank the listeners for tuning in to the first Talk of the County podcast with Stacy, the CAO for Baltimore County, Maryland.
Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for that honor. And go Buckeyes.